Sonic 5th Anniversary Edition Familiar Territory. What would normally just be a pointless cash grab volume, considering that the first IDW collection gives you more bang for your buck, becomes relevant because of the new story it has. But it doesn't advertise that story on the cover, so that's not good for sales. I only knew to even look at this story because of the Thanks Ken Pender's IDW timeline having it below it. The title makes sense because it starts out with Sonic in the first town of the comic again. I don't know why it's called Vista View. What do they have a view of? Any town can have people look through telescopes at the sky. They have even less of a view because they have a wall around their town. I guess the Vista is referring to the field around it because it's like Windows Vista. I like that this time he just looks serious and feels bad for the people because robots are attacking the town. He's not smiling, so it doesn't look like he doesn't care about the possibility that people are getting hurt or even considered it because he's only looking forward to the fun of fighting it. I don't like the line, "Time to do that hero thing again," because it sounds reluctant and bored like Sonic Boom Sonic would say. When I doubt IDW Sonic is actually bored of heroism, when he doesn't get to do nearly enough of it in this comic. He runs towards the open gate of the town, and some badniks are waiting for someone to show up, and one of them makes sure he runs into its claw. I even get to see the impact, and he has a bruise afterwards. It's cool that the coward he saved in the first issue saves him fearlessly. But it would have actually looked cool if we saw the hammer impact anything and he didn't have those stars for eyes and black around them for no reason like he's an evil robot. Of course he cares enough about Sonic to ask if he's okay, and Sonic compliments him that he figured out how to use that Wisp-On, which sounds condescending, because it was always obvious how to use it. Even Fleetway Sonic isn't usually outright sarcastic with civilians with a genuine smile, which is more annoying to me than just being relatably grumpy from the situation. The civilian says Sonic inspired him to protect his neighbors with a hammer Wisp-On during the Metal Virus. It would have been nice if the writer wasn't too lazy to name this guy. It's hard to attach yourself to a guy with no name. There's no way he would have been turned into a zombie if he had a weapon to fight with. He got in a dead end with no way out. And I have to assume he got attacked by the Robin on the right while he was swinging at the ones on the left. How is it inspiring that his attempt at protecting people because of Sonic amounted to nothing? They would have suffered for a shorter amount of time if they got infected earlier. Why didn't his hammer swing at the ones in front of him also hit the one to the right? Hammer swings are in a wide U-shape. It's unlikely that he happened to be close enough to see the Metal Virus being sent to a portal to the sun. But it's possible. Sonic acts humble, saying that's nothing special, and has lame dialogue where he quotes a song from the game, which is the kind of nostalgia pandering that's the writer's magic spell to make easily impressed people think a story is good as a whole. Sonic calls him Buddy and is complimented that he can turn golden flying, and he says that's a special case. I refuse to buy that only Sonic, Shadow, and Silver can do that with all 7 Chaos Emeralds. It doesn't make any sense. It's Mary Sue-ish. It's not like you need Sonic's powers. Silver can do this too. He has to be making the wrong assumption that just 3 people can do that, when there's been billions of people and the emeralds are so old. When all these 3 have in common is they're hedgehog guys with magic powers. Amy doesn't turn gold and fly when she's Super in Superstars, even though she's fast enough to run through loops. And can spread the speed to her friends so that even Big can do that in Heroes. She has a high hammer jump in Sonic Advance, so she's magical too. Apparently she doesn't have enough magic in her to count, or having magic isn't even a factor at all. I guess she conveniently bought magic tarot cards for Sonic Frontiers. I doubt a genetic mutation could be so rare that only 3 families could have it. This story was so boring I'd rather talk about this. This panel doesn't show people that are in super forms. The only way you know that they turned super in the first place is if one of them bragged about it, and so news spread. And they would have to do that because everyone would want to know what happened. I hate that Sonic trails off instead of finishing his trail of thought. Again, I'm left to assume he'd just be spouting out an assumption based on not seeing evidence for the alternative. And if he used to think only he could go super, then he'd be using that same logic to believe that. A laser from a buzz bomber that in the games fires nothing but round projectiles conveniently doesn't hit him, even though he's at a standstill and was still for more than long enough for him to aim right. He would have been hit. Of course, there's no sign of the bruise anymore. Guess his rings heal him quickly. It's no wonder I don't care enough when the characters get hurt. Sonic calls them pal, and the story ends with me still not knowing the name of this character or what the hell animal he was supposed to be based on. So why did Antoine not have a shirt because he's a guy while he has a shirt? This story by Ian Flynn was about the first civilian Sonic saved in the comic getting to save him in a panel that should have looked satisfying. He says that Sonic made him braver, which we already assumed. It makes me question how he got turned into a robot when he had a weapon and no reason not to swing in a way that knocked down every robot in front of him. That's all there is to say about the plot. It's one of the many stories in this comic that just come off as boring to me. Since some people are immune to problems like slow pacing or lack of creativity ruining a story, boring is subjective, which is why my reviews aren't really about my opinion of a story. They're about figuring out all the plot holes and everything good about it, because plot holes are objective things. And finding them all is a lot more effort than saying a few opinions. People say they like stories for minor good things sometimes. Specific lines are usually specific to the one story they're in, but it'd be ludicrous to call a story good just because of lines ignoring everything else. So it's not a major good thing because it's unique. It's the premise and the characters' handling that matter. It's good that this guy gets to save Sonic, but Sonic's been saved before, and one great panel doesn't make a story good, and it's mostly exposition. Nobody wants that from a story. The premise is just two people talking about stuff we already knew. The setting and characters are old ones, and I only like the hammer guy. I expected at least two things new. We all figured he defended people during the metal fires. This just makes him look less competent than I'd expect because he still managed to get infected without being asleep or snuck up on. So it accomplishes the opposite of what it's meant for anyone who can think about it. So it's actually better to not read this. So yeah, it is a bad story.